to another episode of Literary Gladiators, the show where we discuss and debate literature in all of its forms. If it's written work, it's game. Let's meet the panel.
Hello, I'm Larry.
David?
Charlie?
And Josh. And great to see everybody here today.
Thank you.
And it is great to see that we are going to be going over a work that I have been trying to propose since season 2. I even had questions set up for this particular story for the second season. And that is a work that Dr. Bordelon, David, also teaches when he's teaching the naturalism unit. And that is The Open Boat by Stephen Crane. So we will just jump right into it and begin with, how would you define naturalism and how does it apply to this particular story?
Yeah, I'll get the ball rolling again, and it's probably going to stop halfway through. But when it comes to naturalism, this is my take on it. You know, this is, you know, for those of you who have read it, you're on a boat. It's an open boat. You're on the sea, and there's really not all that much, but there's more than, no. There's more than meets the eye. You got this. I called it beautiful enemy because it's beautiful because you've got the beautiful ocean, even though it's trying to kill you, and you have the sky, the land, and the way Mr. Stephen Crane sets everything up is just, he's very descriptive with nature, and he's always, you know, it's, and then he's very, oh boy, I'm trying to get on my thoughts.
Nature is indifferent. I
Yes.
think that's the one
Yes,
thing that you should know
Yes.
most when approaching this. And the fact that the way that we see humans in this boat that's smaller than a bathtub,
Yeah.
and
there's
scrambling
there's
to
4 people
make do
in it,
with what they have,
Yeah.
is no different than pigs at a slaughterhouse.
Right. And it's funny that you brought up pigs, because I think one of the major features of naturalism is that man's just an animal like any other animal. So you're going to be swayed, and you're going to be moved by the environment. You're going to be affected by the environment, and you're not really special. I mean, we like to think of ourselves at the top.
Well, I know I'm special.
And we like to
special.
think of ourselves as like the central focus of any landscape. But as you mentioned in this story, they're just on a little chip of a raft in the Gulf of Mexico. You know, so not really much of them. Yeah.
Someone posted a really interesting meme on Facebook. It's the ecosystem, and it has every animal in a circle, and it's indifferent. Everybody's on the same pace.
Right.
That's the way it is.
Right.
The way that we see it, we're on top,
Right.
and then maybe in the middle are some of the animals, like dogs and cats, that we
Right.
cherish, and then everything else is subservient to
Food,
us.
yeah.
And then at the far bottom is the pests,
Right.
like the mosquitoes.
Yeah.
I just environment. I mean, it has to be animated for us to really appreciate it. And here in this boat, you see the environment really acting strongly on these characters. You know, the physical environment that they're in. That it almost he refers to it one time as a cult or something. You know, the way the dinghy is bouncing up and down. So he's bringing in animal imagery to describe what the sea is doing to them.
Mhm.
That's why I said it's beautiful, but it's also the enemy because it is.
Yeah, there's
You
a
know.
shark in there too. That's
Oh, yeah.
swimming around,
Yeah.
you know, hoping that they'll get dumped out so it'll have
What
dinner.
are you going to do with a shark? Oh, I'll just bunk it on the head with the oar. Oh,
Right.
it broke.
He only describes so much too. He only
Yeah.
gives them, aside from Billy the Oiler, everybody else is
Yeah.
just known by their profession.
Exactly.
And he does his
An oiler is, in a way, kind of a profession, but he does mention his name.
Yeah, everybody else is just
Really?
the correspondent, the cook, and the
And
captain.
it was
And the captain, per se, he's the
yeah.
he's the least effective one on there.
because he has an injury.
Right.
His hand, I believe, was his hand.
But that's a good point that he's, so go with that a little bit. What do you think, why have the captain least effective?
The captain is the one that is supposed to at least have the strongest say
Right.
Yeah.
on what's going
He has
on.
to, you know.
And not only may he not only is this a possible harping on the fact that in many cases the authoritative individual is the least effective, but he's physically the least effective, and he's the one that I would say that the correspondent and the oiler, the ones that are rowing the boat, are having the most say.
Right.
Too.
And you know,
Well, I don't know, because the captain is telling them where to go.
Right.
he is giving
he's
the
got
orders,
Look to
but
the man,
you know,
Yeah.
The other men look to the captain, yeah.
They
I
look
think,
to him, but he doesn't have that. His voice is not as strong as one would. It's not. It doesn't have that flair.
It's subordinate to nature. It's like
Mhm.
someone that here's this captain. He was just a captain of this big ship, and now he is the captain of a little dinghy that could, be
Like
swamped
this.
at any time.
Yes.
And yeah, it's like showing, I guess,
And
the
it-
frailty
yeah.
of
And I think it
mankind.
was.
Yeah.
No, I agree, and I agree 100 total, 135 trillion%. Also, what I wanted to say was, the captain is always on a ship. It's always your supreme authority. We don't know that. However, and this kind of reiterates what we just said, but the captain is not just the one to drive the ship or navigate the ship. The captain also has to, make other orders, and there's no satellite technology that does it for you. Or all you have to do is just sit there and look and see the ship, push a button, and a hot dog pops up. You've got to have that mentality also, and it's not only you have just yourself, you have all the other men working on the ship, or in this case now it's a dinghy, and it's I see it as a way of you have no choice, Captain. You have to pass the torch to us now because we have to take over. So, like I said, that pretty much reiterates what we were saying, but
I just don't know if I see that so much. I mean, they ask him.
well, yeah, in here,
for
not really.
everything. They ask him what to do.
And he says,
they're
I
constantly
don't
asking him.
know. I don't know.
They're always asking him.
Yep.
Like, I mean, even before at the end when the captain says, "We got to make a break for it now because we're not going to
Yeah.
have enough strength to do it later."
Right.
The oiler's like, "Well, should I turn the ship around?" He
Yeah.
said,
I think I
And
better
Captain says, yeah.
back her in.
But he talks about early on. He talks about the subtle brotherhood of men, and this ties into
That's exactly where
Yes.
we're going to be going with the next
Yeah.
question.
But I think that
Yeah.
ties into what you were talking about, how the indifference of the world. I think another strong tenet of naturalism, because man is an animal, and because just at the mercy of the environment, it really begins questioning God. So as opposed to looking to God for help, you need to look to those around you, including the captain. So in other words, there's different points when he rails, at nature, and nature just doesn't care. But they do have each other.
Right.
And
That's
you're right, they are
exactly,
looking to the captain. Yeah.
Something I was looking to explore why they're the idea that they are in the constant denial of the particular laws of naturalism.
It's
Right.
not going to happen.
Which I think that you make up a good point with the brotherhood of man.
Right.
And they have to rely on something, and they can't rely on the idea that nature is going to do what it wants, and we're just about screwed.
Right. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
they
pretty
wonder.
much.
There's the repeated line: "If I'm going to be drowned,
Yes.
if I'm going to be
Yes.
drowned, if I'm going to be drowned, why, in the name of the seven mad gods who rule the sea, was I allowed to come this far and contemplate sand and trees? Was I brought here merely to have my nose dragged away?
from the
It's,
holy
it's
food.
Was
about
about
to
to
nibble
nibble
the
the
sacred
sacred
cheese
cheese of life." And I just love that line, the sacred cheese of life, because
That's my
he
favorite
both
line in the whole
holds
thing
it
as
up,
well.
but then he just
Yeah,
says
it's
it's
like-
not really much at all,
Yeah.
cheese. Because cheese is, isn't it weird how cheese says it just undercuts anything? Like, when
Yes,
you
it-
say just the word cheese. 'cause
There's not enough of it in
cheesy,
literature.
That's
yeah,
me
yeah.
right there.
you
Cheesy.
go.
But
Right?
I also, with that particular line, there was this self-help novel called "Who Moved My Cheese," or self-help
Yeah.
fable called
Yeah,
"Who
yeah.
Moved My Cheese."
Yeah.
which
Minus who cut my cheese.
it's $20 for something that's 90 minutes to read. But I would think that the reason he uses that term is to represent the goals that one has in life, and I think that making it to shore, is what the correspondent and the others deem as their sacred cheese.
Right.
Yeah. And also, here's another take I have on this as well. Even though right now God is you're questioning God, and like, why are you putting me through this? Also, you can think of it as the sea is life itself, just everyday life. Even in today, you're driving in traffic, and then boom, car accident, this and then that, and then oh great, now I'm going to get a ticket. You're saying to yourself, why, and then you finally get to your destination at the and this is kind of coming from a Catholic standpoint. You get to your destination. In this case, it was the land, which is what they needed to be on ASAP. In this case, it's you're getting to where you need to be, and from my religious point of view, and now we're really blowing this out of the water. Water, no pun intended. You're getting to that afterlife.
But you get to the point almost of existentialism, because I think the story.
I was trying to make that
connection. It gets to that why question, and there's
Yes.
the great scene when he talks. He talks about, or he writes, when it occurs to a man that nature does not regard him as important, and that she feels she would not maim the universe by disposing of him, just getting rid of him. This is great. He at first wishes to throw bricks at the temple, and he hates deeply the fact that there are no bricks and no temples. So it's like there's no purpose in life, which is really the essence of existentialism. So then what do? You're staring at the abyss. Are you in despair, or do you embrace the abyss?
Life is just an empire of dirt.
Yeah, and then, but here again, I'm going back. You have the subtle brotherhood of man. So that's what you do. You don't just give up on everything and just live a life of hedonism, or you don't just kill yourself. He says, no, you look to each other, and that's how you find your strength.
That's the positive.
Because he says there's no God, and I love that there's no temple. There's not even a brick to throw at the temple. There's just nothing, and that's what he's just trying to get across. Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
You take an astronomy class and it becomes even more complicated.
Yes, yeah.
Just the idea, we earlier in the season went over Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy,
Sure.
which has to do, I wrote an argument saying the only thing that matters in life is matter.
Right.
Because
and matter is anything that
even
takes
we're
up space.
we're just
Yeah, stardust, as they used to say, right? Cosmic dust. It's so funny you mentioned astronomy. In the same little section, he ends this kind of existentialist, cry of the heart, by saying a high cold star on a winter's night is the word he feels that she says to him, that thereafter he knows the pathos of his situation. So I think the high cold star, to me, it's like a reference. You were talking about Catholicism, a reference perhaps to Bethlehem, but it's also all there is the star. There's no manger in this story. There's nothing. All it is astronomy. So all we have is matter, and it seems like that's what he's accepting. He's embracing that idea.
Next question is, why end the story the way it ended, as opposed to killing everyone off or having everyone survive?
Surprise!
Why just killing off Billy the Oiler?
I wonder if there's any significance to the fact that Billy is the only one that is named and he's the only one that dies. I don't know if there is. Just something that occurred to me is that those two facts exist.
Well, it's based on a true story, and in that case, the Oiler, I believe, if I remember correctly, did die. So it was that person that died in the actual event. And it's interesting because he had written, because at the time he was a correspondent, the story is based on an incident that actually occurred in his life. It was a gun-running boat going down to Cuba, packed up with guns, and it sunk, and he was on it, and then the newspaper article really doesn't talks about the sinking, talks about getting on shore, doesn't mention this period, but in the newspaper article he says that would be like an interesting story.
And it was.
Yeah, that what went on in that boat in that time period.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why he has the Oiler die, because in real life that's what happened. So he's just kind of remaining true to real life.
And the reason, I'm sorry.
It may very well be the basis of the story too, because the Oiler was physically he was the most able one, and you would think that he'd be the one that would most likely
survive.
If any of them.
Right.
And the reason
but he was also probably the most exhausted at the time.
You have that too to contend with. The correspondent was doing the second most labor. It seemed like he got to shore perfectly okay.
Right.
We
I
wouldn't
mean,
have a
it
story
was-
if the
was
if the
rowing in the
correspondent
end.
didn't make it in
Yeah.
real life.
It's funny too, they talk about rowing, and whenever I'm in a boat or something rowing or paddling, I'm thinking of this because the correspondent says like, if anybody ever says that rowing is fun, he wants to like take them and strangle them or something, you know, because after doing it, you know, for so many hours at sea, you realize it's not exactly
Yeah.
fun.
Oh, I do this on the weekends. It's,
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
no, you don't.
Now you mentioned the end of the story, and at the end of the story, I think it's one of the strongest references back to naturalism. One of the men that comes to save them, he writes that he was naked as a tree in winter. And before they talked about how the person coming to save them was stripping his clothes off. It's naked as a tree in winter, but a halo was about his head, and he shone like a saint. So there you see
Your
a
savior.
person, yeah, but it's not coming in a religious point of
Oh,
view.
oh,
It's
I-
saying
that's what-
again,
but yeah.
using the symbolism of religion, but connecting it very much to the brotherhood of man. That here's
Exactly.
a man
Like,
coming
hey,
to save.
you're
I think
danger,
it's
I'm
the
coming
idea
out.
that humanity always has to have that sacred cheese to look forward to.
Right.
That's even, I know that I got some heat for a position I took on the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, which is in some ways similar, where whether they believe it is in a Christianly way or it's just, there's in many cases always something that they have to look forward to or look at in that savior kind of manner. It's,
Right. Well, yeah, I guess what is the human desire to have a hero or something? And this story kind of undercuts the idea of hero, again, except at the end. But though the person comes with a halo, but I'm not, what's interesting too is notice the person does come to save them, but somebody still dies. And, you know, the correspondent says, no, don't go to me, don't go to captain. So the person comes in with the halo, but I'm not sure how effective he is. And we see actually he's not that effective. Somebody does die.
Because the captain says it to the correspondent,
Yeah.
and when he gets to the correspondent, he sees the body.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right. But again, I think it's important that he has a halo. Again, Crane is using that as a strong symbol of that this is who we look to. We don't look up to heaven. We look for, you know, angels on earth.
Gotta look
Yeah.
at the captain as well, because the captain delivering his message, it seemed ineffective.
Right,
Which
right.
that's pretty much how he was. They made it to shore, they survived, but someone died. So in a way, as much as most of them survived, the captain would probably go down as relatively ineffective.
Right. And what do you make of the very last line where it says, when it came night, the white waves paced to and fro in the moonlight, and the wind brought the sound of the great sea's voice to the men on shore, and they felt that they could then be interpreters. And there I want to emphasize the then, because it seems as if before that they couldn't be interpreters.
Yeah.
So how come they can interpret the sea now?
It's maybe because now
They're
they're
detached.
What's that?
Yeah.
Detachment.
They're detached from it? Sure.
Yeah.
Why else do you think now they can?
Perhaps because they experienced it in all of its fury,
Yeah.
and it kind of revealed this kind of naturalist philosophy to them.
Right.
I think in a way, though, when you get back to the beginning, it's
Right.
I get the idea that humans feel that they can interpret anything. And because there really isn't another species to challenge that,
Right. To say, what do you know? Yeah.
it's that idea that they, once they go through something, it doesn't really matter whether or not there's more to come.
Right.
They feel they're experts.
It's interesting that you talk about the beginning, because the first line is that they weren't looking at the sky. It says none of them knew the color of the sky. And that's because, of course, they're in the boat and they are just paying super close attention to the waves that are going to swamp them at
that's
any
what I wanted
time.
to say, because
So then that, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, but no, I wanted to say something like that. When you're on the land and you're, you know, assumed well rested, you have, and you know,
Right.
this took place in January,
Right.
I believe. So it's really cold, and when you're in the water, it's going to be even colder.
It's the Gulf of Mexico, so you can
Yeah.
take a few points off.
Yeah, but you can still get
Yeah.
hypothermia. You know,
Yeah,
you can
good.
still die.
It does set in hypothermia.
And then I guess the point there is none of them knew the color of the sea, and this gets what you were talking about, is now they know the color of the sea because they've lived it for so long. You know, they were looking at the waves at such a close level, such a close, literally, it's like literally right up to them.
Right.
So now they can interpret it. And now I think some of their
They've had
some of their
time to think.
beliefs, some of their belief systems have been challenged, and they've kind of come out the other side. I think with a different perspective on life.
Alrighty then, anybody have any final thoughts that we didn't touch upon?
It's a great read. Read it, and of course, I would, when I read it with Dr. Bordelon, I had to reread it a couple times because, I reread it mostly because it was such a great short story, and when I found out it was based on an actual event that took place, I become a little more attached to these characters. That's how I feel.
I think it's definitely worth reading. I think it's one of the greatest short stories that I would definitely recommend. I would say that much. And I think that it really is a go-to work when it comes to understanding naturalism and the idea that in reality nature doesn't care, but humanity thinks otherwise. They're in a state of denial.
And Charlie just brought up the newspaper article. I think it's also a great way of showing the difference between fiction and nonfiction, because this is a fictional story, so you can see what he's taken, what he leaves out, versus the newspaper article. So it's a great way of showing how artists both use actual events, but then add so much to them and take away as well. So it's a creative, in a way, it's like looking at the creative mind as it's creating, because you see both sides of the same story.
But Stephen Crane doesn't know what exactly is going on that boat. They could probably, for all they know, they could probably be drinking, having a great. I don't promote that stuff at all, but they could be, But it's assumed when you're under stress, when you're under this kind of.
It's difficult for them to fit in the boat themselves.
Exactly.
Where do you think they'll fit the booze? Or
Exactly.
Raspberry Snapple.
I love Snapple and cookies.
Charlie would probably jump ship because there's no Raspberry Snapple.
I would
out
actually.
there.
I would have. If you think I'm lying, watch me.
You want to say something, Larry?
No, I think you guys pretty much said everything that I would say. It's a good story. I would recommend it as well.
Ready? We have two recommendations. The one that I have is the Penguin Classics, Stephen Crane, The Red Badge of Courage and Other Stories. Open Boat is later in. I think after that it's just his poetry, and then that's about that. And Dr. Bordelon has Volume C.
As in cookie.
Another foodie reference. Do you like your edition? I guess you teach out of it, so.
Yeah, sure. It's interesting. I guess a lot of people wouldn't spend the money on like an anthology like this because it costs a lot. It might be like $60 or so, but you end up with a great curated collection of stories. And the best thing is you can buy them so cheaply online after a new edition comes out. So it's actually a good way to get a really nice collection of stories is just to buy old textbooks, because
And this is the 8th edition.
yeah, so you can get any of the older editions. It doesn't really matter. Most of the time, many of the stories say the same, but you can get them sometimes for really cheap, like $5 or even less.
And then you said that's going to be the last edition?
I was told it was going to be the last print edition. I'll see though, because I did have a rep coming in and talking about the next print edition, so I'm not sure. I think the transition from e-text to print is taking a little longer than many people anticipated.
Mm-hmm. And there are still going to be people that don't want to convert.
Sure. I know for teaching, it is really hard to flip through pages very quickly in an e-text. It's amazing what a durable invention a book is. You can just really quickly go to any place. Whereas if it's on a Kindle or a laptop or on a computer screen, it will take a while, to search through and find what you want.
Well, make sure you have good Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Alrighty then. Be sure to join us next time for another episode of Literary Gladiators. For now, go eat some sacred cheese and keep reading.
And cupcakes.